marriage to be the end, the destination, the goal of all our happiness and purpose in life, we expect our spouse, I'm not married, you expect your spouse to be the one to be completely perfect, put together, to completely submit their needs and wants to yours, to assist in achieving your goals, all the while filling you with love, purpose, and a complete sense of fulfillment. That's on the emotional side of things, but on the physical side of things, social media and I suggest society and culture has created a fantasy of what marriage is by defining our expectations for us and informing our tastes and preferential types. You may think that your preference for wanting a man that is a certain height. You may think your preference for wanting a man that looks a certain way, or wanting a woman who is shaped a certain way, or wanting a woman who is of a certain height, because if she is not that height, then it's a deal breaker. You may think that on one side of the fence that your preference was birthed through your own uniqueness and through your own personal interest and your own unique taste and sense of style and fashion. But the truth is, on the other side of the fence, your taste and preference was formed for you by a culture around you. So brothers and sisters, it was formed by the trends that you saw, by the family that you grew up into. And may I suggest that people's preference sometimes are motivated by the desire to fit in a certain circle. So they prefer one thing above another based on a desire to fit in and be accepted. The fact is, let me illustrate, I remember looking at a particular documentary. And in a certain community, in a certain native village, it is considered a thing of beauty for a woman to put a ring in her mouth until her jaws are stretched beyond the natural limits of how a face should be constructed by design. You see, in that culture, men find it more appealing if a woman had longer faces. So if you believe that you have been looking and that you have a so-called small round face, and you went into that particular culture, you would be utterly disappointed. In another tribe, in some other part of the world, I've come to understand that the larger a man's belly is, have mercy, the larger a man's belly is, or his tummy is, it is the more appealing he is. It is the more exquisite he is. It is the more attractive he is. It is the more masculine he is. It is the more impactful and inviting he is. And so in that culture, a giant watermelon tummy is more superior than having a squash pumpkin belly. And so in other words, this is one culture where a six-pack is like cockroach in fall party. And this is one culture where it is like your hands in a chicken pen. You see, what I've come to understand is that marriage itself is not isolated from culture. Marriage itself is not isolated from culture. We cannot escape culture, but the principles of marriage should transcend culture. Let me say this again in another way. We can transcend culture, but we cannot escape it. Let me put it another way. We cannot escape culture, but we can transcend it. And you see, what I've come to understand is that I cannot escape culture because of the dialect or the expression They are looking for a finished statue. Yes. Most people, when they are looking for a spouse, they are looking for a finished building. When they should be looking for a wonderful block of clay. When they should be looking for a wonderful block of marble. When they should be looking for a wonderful block of bricks. Not so that you can create the person you want, but so that you can get to see the kind of person Jesus is making and fashioning that person into. Too many times we look for a statue when God is showing us the clay. And so, brothers and sisters, marriage is not about marriage. Just as the Sabbath is not about the Sabbath. Just as the communion bread and wine is not about the communion bread and wine. Just as a man is not about himself. For the word for image in the book of Genesis chapter 1 and verse 26 says that when God said, let us make man in our own image. You see, what is quite interesting is that the Hebrew word used for image is the same word used for idol. Let me say this again. The Hebrew word used for image is the same word that is used for idol. And so when I looked at the Hebrew word for image, it means a phantom or an illusion. It means a representation. A phantom, an illusion, or a representation. You see, a phantom is really something that is not real. It is something that appears or seems to exist, but it is not real. It is something of a figment of the imagination. An illusion is something that isn't real, and a representation is a miniature model of the real thing, but is not the real thing. In other words, brothers and sisters, marriage is not the ultimate reality. God is. And so the reflection of the man in the mirror is not the real thing. The person standing in front of the mirror is the real thing. Marriage is a model of a reality that is greater than itself. And so marriage is the image because it was made to reflect a reality greater than itself. And let me say to you, brothers and sisters, you can either allow marriage to be an image or become an idol. You see, the purpose